Hey, I'm Miranda Miller, and if you have been following along this year, you'll notice that I've gotten to ride a bunch of different bikes through my program with SRAM. And so today in this video, I'm going to take you through my Santa Cruz Nomad. So I prepared a short document. It's 3 pages long, and let me take you through my 10 thoughts on my Santa Cruz Nomad. Thought number 1. The very first ride I went on, out behind my house, the very first thing I noticed about this bike is the ride feel of the frame. It's like a super even stiffness is like the way I guess I would describe it. And I feel like it's not necessarily something that you are looking for in a bike, but you notice it when it's there. And it was kind of crazy how much I noticed it just, on like my first ride. So the Santa Cruz Nomad is a purpose-built mullet. I've kind of been raving about mullets for, since I first got one a few years ago. And it's really cool to now ride a bike that is built around being a mullet. It's not a flip chip. You're not changing things to kind of compensate. The whole geometry, the whole frame is built on a platform of being a mullet. What I like about the mullet on these longer travel bikes is that you can just use your legs more and you're descending, change direction really easily. Like if you're riding a trail you don't know, or, I did the Santa Cruz Rally this year and that was all blind racing. So you'd kind of get on these lines and then all of a sudden have to change direction really quickly. And I think that's really easy to do on that mullet. So I'm 5'9", so that kind of puts me between a medium and a large, but I chose the medium frame because I knew that I was going to be racing in Europe more this summer, and it's just easier to maneuver and tighter sort of unknown terrain. One change I did make to the bike that isn't stock is that I bumped my front travel from 170 to 180. And what I found that gave me a more balanced position on the bike, because it is a little bit smaller for me, I found I was struggling to have a good neutral position. I was often being forced onto my front end. And so yeah, just giving myself a little more support on the fork, I just found it gave me more balance. Even though it did then make my reach a little bit shorter, I just felt instantly more comfortable. What I've really noticed about the Nomad is a really good proportion between the front and the rear center. It's got a 440 chainstay, and in the past I've had shorter and I've had longer, and I've always craved that kind of in between at the 440, and it just feels like it's proportionally built to this bike, which is nice. Sometimes you get on a bike and the reach is good, but then the chainstay is way too long or way too short, and yeah, I just felt like this bike is very evenly proportioned. I've always wanted that sort of 440 chainstay because I think it's like the perfect in-between of stability, but also being able to push through turns and kind of making the bike a little more maneuverable for me. Yeah, so the flip chip for your rear shock, high and low. I've tried both. I ended up running low the majority of the season. It makes it a little bit more progressive. I believe high gives you more mid-stroke support. But I kind of like to ride sort of a little bit deeper in my travel, really feel my feet move through the travel, and then have that kind of ramp at the end of the stroke. Pretty much exclusively on all my mountain bikes I've ridden coil the past probably 3 years. And that didn't change when I got the Nomad, but it did change when I got the Vivid. I just slapped it on, sort of thinking I'd go back to coil, and I haven't gone back. Honestly, it's like a coil that you can adjust way more. One of my favorite parts, actually, about this new bike is the down tube storage. I haven't had that in a few years, and I'm brutal at remembering to bring any tubes or tools with me. Often I bring lots of food and water, but I don't have anything to fix my bike. In my down tube, I've got a tube, I've got a CO2, spare brake pads, chain link pliers, tire plugs, and they're just always in there. And I actually haven't had to use them, but at least they're there. Yeah, so this year I raced 4 EWSs all throughout Europe, the Stone King Rally, 6 days of blind racing, hammered laps in the Queenstown Bike Park, in the Whistler Bike Park, and I did it all on this bike, and there was never a moment where I wanted more or I wanted less. Yeah, it's funny when you compare a bike like this that honestly, it never feels like I'm going too fast. Like, it just always feels like I can go faster. And you're like, I didn't even have that feeling on my downhill bikes growing up. It is pretty insane that it's on a bike that you pedal to the top of the hill. I could not guess how many meters of descending because Stone King itself was like 24,000 meters of descending. So like, probably the most descending I've ever done in a year has been on this bike, and that's like includes when I race downhill.